Now, you're listening to Midweek Voices, and tonight's Midweek Voices, of course, is the last Midweek Voice before Christmas, and we thought we'd have a bit of fun on the show. Well, we're going to tell you things about Christmas past. We don't want to be too serious about it now, so it may have happened, and it may still happen, it may not happen. But anyway, I'm joined by Michael Fortune. He's an artist and a folklorist, and he's the fella who knows all about strange goings-on from years and years ago. And you've been on the show before, Michael, talking about Halloween and Bealtaine and things like that. Tell me about Christmas traditions now.
Yeah, I suppose really I can't start talking about Christmas without thinking about almost thousands of years ago. Think about the New Granges. Think about 5,300 years ago when the people of County Meath, and I'm sure other counties as well, got together and aligned big stones so to mark the winter solstice. Now, and that is really at the core of it is the marking of light. Dan, we when we look back, we think of the winter solstice as the 21st of December, and obviously Christianity is built upon the Christmas Day is built upon that, and then we think back of the Christmas and the 21st of June, and that's the summer solstice. So we mark the shortest day of the year, and that's been a really important thing. And so many of our festivals so many of our traditions are around that. Even our Christmas tree, our holly, our ivy that we put up, they're all around that marking that dark time of the year, because after all, we're in the depths of winter. Look out the window here, it's dark and it's wet, so we need things to cheer us up and get us through to the next stage.
And things like the holly and decorations and all that sort of thing, I think that came in from Europe maybe a couple of centuries ago, did it? Yeah,
well, the holly has always been a part of the whole Celtic celebration. The holly, because it's an evergreen, it's a native thing to Ireland. But the Christmas tree is an import. The Christmas tree, the import would have went with German immigrants to America, in through England and in through Ireland, probably the early 1800s. And that's slowly crept in. And I can guarantee some of your listeners out here, I know my own mother and father, they never had a Christmas tree. A Christmas tree was foreign. But I wouldn't have a Christmas tree in my house. I like the idea of bringing something alive and green into the house. It kind of brightens up the year and gets us through, as I said, gets us through to the next stage and gets us through thinking of the summer again in the spring.
Well, as far as I know, we didn't have a Christmas tree in the early days. We then got more prosperous as time went on. But I remember all the holly being stuffed in at the top of the dresser and in corners and places like that. The holly was key to the whole thing, and it had to have berries.
Yes, absolutely. Red and, again, the colours are red and green. And one of the lovely things, whatever, is that the holly was always on the dresser, as you were saying, and over the picture frames and over the door. And again, it's no coincidence that it was over the door. If you go into especially older people's houses, you'll always see the St. Bridget's cross over the door. You'll see the blessed palm over the door, and that was a threshold. That was a threshold into the house and into the home. So there was, again, no coincidence the holly was put there. And here's the other thing I say, Dan, as well, because we're evergreen. With Christmas starting now, people pumping the Christmas sales and buying stuff in November. Like, realistically, in my grandmother's time, and I'm sure some of your listeners, the decorations only went up literally Christmas Eve or a few days beforehand. And if you think about it, if you the 12 days of Christmas are starting, whatever, or Christmas time up to the 6th of January, if you start putting up holly and ivy weeks in advance, sure, to be dead by come Christmas. So there's a reason why we put it up. There's a reason why we have those 12 days of Christmas.
And if you had central heating or anything, it wouldn't last any length of time. But nowadays, of course, there isn't all that much natural holly and everything in houses. We tend to go to those little shops that sell them cheaply, and we've plenty of tinsel and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, we do, and I'm the same. Whatever, I kind of like the way traditions kind of develop in layers, develop on top of each other, and I'd be the first to admit that. But there's still something very special about that live thing. And even if we can, there's a great tradition in Wexford actually, and especially with country people, of going out and even getting a bit of holly and giving it to your neighbour at Christmas. Or even I actually always loved even the signs I've seen people selling holly on the street of Gorey. That was always, that was one of those traditions where people would actually get a few extra pound for themselves just to get them through for Christmas. They're nice things, and I wouldn't like to imagine Christmas without holly now, to be fair. The real deal, that is now.
Well, you can buy a Christmas tree and some holly on the side of the street in Enniscorthy. I'm not allowed to say who's selling it, but there's lads selling it there. They've been there for the last 6 weeks, and it's fresh and everything.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where I get my Christmas tree as well, off them, the exact same men, and it's lovely. It's kind of going back in, and I'm there's a whole ritual to even buying the tree. But yeah, it's lovely. The Christmas tree is lovely, and it's funny. One of the great things I've been going in and out of schools for the last week, working with the Heritage Council, talking to children about Christmas and the traditions. Even though the Christmas tree is brought into your home, and it's an evergreen, so it's about light, it's about brightness, it's about getting through to that time of year. One of the great things we have in Wexford is we've got the Maybush, and the Maybush in some ways, the white thorn bush we cut down and decorate with eggshells and ribbons, it's actually very similar. And one of the great things is that the people of Wexford and Waterford who went to Newfoundland, they went over, but they don't have the white thorn. And when the 1st of May comes, when they put up their Maybush, do you know what they use? to use a pine tree like our Christmas tree and to decorate it in the exact same way, but only with the Maybush. So you see these Christmas trees, outside Christmas trees, or Maybushes in Newfoundland to this day down around Point Lance.
By Christmas Eve then we have the decorations up and we have the tree in place and all that sort of thing. We're ready to go. Is there anything else that they used to do on Christmas Eve?
Well, one of the things, whatever.
Oh, the food has to be got in.
Oh, the food has to be got in, yeah. And food, listen, I'm in and out of schools the whole time. We don't realise how, for so many of us, we're so lucky that we have access to food and we're warmed and sheltered, much compared to our own parents' time. And I said, and maybe I've said this to you before, my own father said to me, he said, we'd be lucky if we had half a pig's head on Christmas Day, because some people had more money than others and some people didn't, and that's the way it went. Now we can get chickens for €2 and €3 and €4. So hopefully no one will go hungry this Christmas, hopefully.
And turkey, of course, he was reared in the backyard. He's part of the family, but his time was limited. He didn't know, but it's arrived.
Yeah, well, he met his fate as well. And the turkey was a new thing, really. I know for some of us the turkey has always been there, but in the scheme of things, the turkey was an import. Again, another import. It was a duck or a goose. One of the things was striking, and again, this is for any listeners here who are, Wexford now is full of a lot of people from Poland or Latvia, and I'd find that in schools, is one of the great traditions was, because the eve was really important, that was the eve of the feast day, and a lot of people, especially the mainland Europeans, they always had their meal on Christmas Eve. And I found that up when I was working in Mayo. I've never came across it in County Wexford, but I found it with older people in Mayo where they would fast all day, and any of your Polish listeners now this will make sense. I find this from the Polish kids in schools. They'll get up in the morning, they'll fast all day, and they won't eat anything until the first evening star comes out. And when the first evening star comes out, then they'll have a meal. And there's loads, but that same tradition is found in Mayo. And one of the lovely things a lot of the Polish people will have is they'll have fish on Christmas Eve. And they'll exchange their presents, but they'll always keep the scale of the fish down and put it in their purse, so they'll have a bit of money for the year. And any of your listeners here now, especially older people, will always know that they go to the crib on Christmas, and you always take a piece of straw from the crib and put it into your purse. So there's loads of crossovers with our traditions,
And once upon a time, they used to go to mass, midnight mass. Yeah. Strange enough, they used to go at 12 o'clock. Now they go to midnight mass at 9 or 10, so to get it over with. And that was a ritual as well, wasn't it? And there was a fry when you came home.
Yeah, there was. There used to be. Yeah, there was always. And the lighting of the candle. Again, what I find is traditions and customs exist in little tiny pockets. So what might be done in the Balloch might be different than down in Feather. What's done in Feather might be different up in Cranford or Coolgraney. And one of the kind of common things was a candle was lit. A candle was lit on Christmas Eve, and sometimes it was the youngest child in the house lit that candle. And so many people carry on that tradition now, and even we do it ourselves with electric lights. But the midnight mass was always, no matter where I go in the county, Dan, people will always say, blah blah blah, come in from the pub, fill into the crib, start singing with the priest. So they moved to midnight mass to 9 o'clock. That was a typical Irish thing. I think that's
antisocial behaviour. I think brought the mass forward.
It did, yeah. It did, yeah. A lot of people actually probably remember. Maybe a couple of infants were going for a few pints afterwards as well. The ham was always taken out, and maybe the ham was boiled that night, and maybe to everyone's poor mother's distress, the lads tucked into it at 12 o'clock. Or
I think the trick was the ham was put on early in the evening, you see, and you went off to mass, and when you came back, the ham was out and just fresh. Yeah. And sure, you'd have to check it before morning to see if it was up to standard.
Oh, you'd have to do that, yeah. You'd have to check most of it, I think, as well.
And then, of course, the party would start.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's lovely. Christmas is magic, to be fair. Now, it's really magic for especially any of us who've got young children. And again, going into schools, what I love, Dan, as well, even going into schools in a classroom, this is folklore collection at its finest. I was in the school there today and asking the little lads, when you get up in the morning, where does Santa leave your presents? And hands up on the sofa. Half the class put up their hands up under the Christmas tree, then one little child, where is your Sandy hides him somewhere. So it's lovely, and those traditions of even the letters that the children write to Sandy. Some people post letters to Sandy, some people stick them up the chimney still, some people burn their letters to Sandy. So it's lovely. So that all these traditions kind of exist side by side, and we all do things differently, and that's what makes us, I suppose, that's what makes us special, And
of course nowadays you email Sandy or you send him a text.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, you can do that, yeah. FaceTime Sandy, yeah. No, you wouldn't FaceTime Sandy, would you?
Probably not, because it'd be the wrong time.
Absolutely, yeah.
He'd have time zones and things like that. So on Christmas morning, then of course there was the rush to see, did Santa come, and did he leave anything?
Absolutely, yeah. That's for our younger years anyway, for sure. And I suppose you talk to a lot of older people, and again I've been talking with the country people, where it was a big morning, you'd be getting up early and you'd be going in the dark in to catch mass, you'd be going into the town, and a lot of people have come across would, no, we didn't do it, but some people would, it'd be the time of year where they'd hire a car, get a hackney car. Some of the people from outside of Gorey said they'd get a hackney car out, and they would do rounds. He'd come out and pick up one family and bring them in, and then he'd bring someone else in for our next Mass. So it was a big deal even to go to Mass for a lot of people, because it's an important day for Christians out there. It is really, it's a...
And I remember, I think it was the 1960s, when a new thing came in, and that was you could make a telephone call to your auntie in Coventry or wherever she was, but you'd have to book the call for 3 o'clock in the day. You'd have little slots to make the call to say hello to her, and you'd only have about 2 minutes, because if you stayed any longer you couldn't afford it.
And now we can just pick up our phones and FaceTime our sons or daughters in Australia, whatever. Yeah, it must be a strange time of year for especially for older people, for grandparents not seeing their children. So there are things that I actually have always said that makes Christmas very special to Western Europe. Like, I spent 1 year in Australia, and it was a warm. I remember spending Christmas in Melbourne. It was warm and sunny, and it almost didn't make sense to me. We have to consider back to, again, our pre-Christian times, when for thousands of years we've actually mapped our events, whether we're going from Christmas or the winter solstice to Imbolc to St. Bridget's Day to May Day, to be out in all those calendar dates were all important. They kind of got us through the year. Even now people will say, come this time of year, we'll start talking about the cock steps in the evening. We'll start seeing the evenings are getting brighter, and we start to see the primroses come up. We start to see the snowdrops come up, and they are little things in us as people, I suppose, to psychologically get us through the winter, and get us through come to the spring and into the summer. We grew up in a house where we didn't have a television. My father, there weren't hippies or anything like that. We didn't have a television until late primary school, early secondary school. We got a television. The American influence is huge. If we look at the Santa figure, which we see, or the Santa figure as we call him here in Wexford, the Santa figure that we have now, the red and the white, that's a construct of Coke, a very famous drink that people drink. Some people drink, and those traditions, like even the European traditions, are so different. A lot of the mainland Europeans, the Germans and the Austrians, the Dutch, they celebrate St. Nicholas Day on the 5th and 6th, and they've got Santa is a different character over there compared to us here now. He wouldn't be this big jolly jovial fella now. He'd give you a slap of a stick if you were about.
I'm amazed I had no television for Christmas. They used to put on a Dinjo special on the wireless. It used to be sort of an hour long or something like that, so that was your extra piece. Okay, so generally Christmas Day was a quiet day.
It was a quiet day, a day for the family then.
And you didn't leave the home. You didn't go to visit the neighbours on that particular day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really important. And one thing that people do now sometimes is people like to go leave a wreath on the graves of their relatives. That's lovely. That's different than a Christmas wreath. That's a very private ritual that we do. But people did stay at home. But Stephen's Day was the important thing, because people, everyone knows you're after getting a good feed of spuds by 3 o'clock, and you're ready for the bed, really. So a lot of people kept to themselves, kept at home, and then come Stephen's Day. Stephen's Day was a big day for getting out. It was a big day in Wexford for our whole Mumman tradition, our whole Ranby tradition, our whole Christmas tradition of getting out and being sociable and being around your neighbours. And we're lucky in Wexford. We have a strong Mumman tradition. We have a strong of the Christmas play, and that's there's very few counties have that. Now the fellas over in Kerry and Clare and RTE send down the reporter every year, and every year we look back and we're sitting in rooms and we're looking back at the fellas in Kerry chasing around. But I can bring you the people in Ballygarrett, I can bring you the people in Bunclody to still go hunting around. But the thing is, we start to see it on television. We start to believe it only happens in Kerry, and we stop doing it ourselves then, and that's the unfortunate thing. That really is the unfortunate thing I find about it. But lots of certain traditions, yeah.
But again, of course, Stephen's Day was a special day because the pub reopened. It had been closed for a couple of days, so that sort of got fellas out. No off licence in them times.
With the Irish, we know too well if Good Friday was a classic example. If you stop us having a drink, we'll buy bucket loads with our our lorry loads that come that Thursday. But yeah, people seem to get out, especially for country people. Though was a lot of calling to your neighbours. I actually like back to those Mumman things, those Christmas Mumman plays, or people dressing up and calling around. They were kind of nice social events. I suppose with the advent of the car, then we could actually travel that bit further. We could go into town to go to the shops, whatever. But certainly for country people, whatever, up to the 1960s, you didn't go that far. You couldn't go that far physically. You couldn't go that far unless you had a bike, And there was something kind of nice about staying local. We did the mummers up here last year, gone in Renboys. But actually, it was a logistical nightmare because there was no one around. Everyone's gone off for lunch with their grannies, or someone's gone off down there. So it was actually hard to get people in their homes, on St. Stephen's Day.
Well, I grew up in Brie, and it was a big day for the hunt. Yeah. The hunt would turn out on Stephen's Day, and there'd be hundreds and thousands after it.
Yeah, that was a big thing. And also, I remember coursing as well. That was another thing. There was always that kind of sport. Well, we want to call it coursing sport, but that's what it was for some people. Yeah, and that's always been a tradition. I think even in England, our neighbours in England and all that as well. That's where I suppose that.
Okay, so that's all the things happening around Christmas. Yeah. What about New Year's Day now? Is it? Do we do anything special to welcome the new year apart from?
Yeah, we do. Well, apart from sit down and watch
forget about it.
Yeah, I started sitting down and watching every year and going, I should be doing something for New Year's, but no, like things like there was customs and traditions, like you wouldn't people don't open up your front door to let New Year in, the back door to let the old year out, or things like the first footing. That was a kind of common one. That was done a lot in Scotland. You'll get it in pockets around Ireland. You get it now and again in Wexford as well, where someone with a dark hair would have to cross the threshold. Again, this threshold is important. They wouldn't. I've recorded loads of people where they would not let someone with red hair into your house on New Year. If someone came to the door red hair, would not let them in on New Year's. New Year's, one other lovely thing is people like to tend to give a child a bit of money on New Year's. It's like the straw in the crib, that kind of idea of Hansel and Purse. Hansel Monday was the first Monday of the New Year, where it was probably tied in with the old calendar, where you'd give a child a bit of money. So that was kind of tied in with that kind of look. It was luck for the New Year as well, I suppose. But it was very little. Little Christmas was the next big day, really, the 6th of January. Yes.
Yeah. New Year's Day and the 6th used to be both church holidays.
They did, yeah. And that's why a lot of people, again in Wexford, wherever, we hear now Little Christmas, or the 6th of January is called Nullig na Mon, and it's called Nullig na Mon down in Kerry and Cork and parts like that, but it was never called Nullig na Mon here, and it was called Little Christmas or Old Christmas, and you'd always, because it was a holy day, you'd always have another meal. I guarantee you, so many of our listeners will remember sitting down and having another meal again, and we still do it on Christmas Day. And on Christmas Day, certainly, well, maybe now things will change and we give our mammies and all a break, and I give all our mothers and our women in our lives a break and get them off for the day. But that was the big case down in Cork and Kerry and parts of Clare. But it's creeping in here, which is a good thing. Give the women a day off.
The Little Christmas was the end day, wasn't it? Wasn't that the 12th day of Christmas?
Yeah, that was the 12th, and the decorations wouldn't come down until after the 12th. One thing my own mother had done, which was lovely, was that when the decorations, I even say when I'm in school with children, you kind of go, we all know it ourselves, when you take the decorations down on the 6th the 7th of January, you walk into your sitting room at home, and you know what, it's kind of gloomy, a little bit gloomy, for that little moment you go, God, I miss the decorations, but you kind of have to think of the evenings getting brighter. But one thing my mother used to do was, they used to hang on to a little bit of holly from Christmas, and because they all cooked on the open fire, like many of your country listeners would have done until the 1960s, I'd say, as they used to keep the holly until the Pancake Tuesday, and when you're lighting the fire for Pancake Tuesday to make a pancake, you throw a holly in to light the fire. And I've recorded, my own mother, who's passed away, told me about that, and I never recorded her. And only recently I was up around Coolgraney, Cranford, and here did I find a man who remembers his mother doing it, and was lovely to see it. And then you ate your pancakes, then come Pancake Tuesday, and then come Pancake Tuesday you went for Lent, and then the tradition started again. So then that'll bring you through Lent, it'll bring you through eggs and through Easter, and then bring you back onto the Maybush. So there's very fine lines run through so many of these traditions, Dan. It's incredible. You wouldn't realise the fine lines run through them. They connect them all up together,
Well, after all you've said there, Michael Fortune, tradition is one thing. What we actually do today is not all that far removed from what we used to do, apart from it's done in a more modern context. We sit inside and we play games, and we are on Facebook and we're watching our television and all the rest of it. But the whole concept of the Christmas festival, it's still there.
Yeah, it is. I would love, personally, I'd love to have the month of November back, though. I don't know why I want the month of November back, but I wish
will come around again.
It will come around again. Hopefully, it usually does. But
you think it's a more interesting month?
What? No, I don't think it's an interesting month. But I tell you what, actually, I find when people think the whole thing starts too early, there's a lull. And I've actually, right now, there's a little bit of a lull. The last week, there's been a bit of a lull because people have done their internet shopping and this, that, and the other. And I know the business people won't like me saying this, whatever, and they all have to make a living and this, that, and the other, and employment and all this kind of stuff. But I still think the sense of occasion is important. I'd hate the idea that we'd come to Christmas Day and everyone would just give up. And that's a fear I would have, that we actually don't. The 12 days of Christmas, if you whatever you are marking it, we were doing this before there was Christianity ever in Ireland, through winter solstice, through feast, and we were marking this time. But so it's important that this is the time. These 2 weeks we've off with our children, these are the times, whatever, to make the best of it. I hope that we don't just get the food on Christmas Day and then take the decorations down. Really.
And one thing we didn't mention was one time you had to go visit the crib. You were brought to the crib, and I think every church had a crib, and there was a great job done on it. Is that tradition still there, or is it just in the bigger churches?
Yeah, I see cribs. I see. I was only out in Blackwater there recently. I saw the crib out there. I think the tradition is still carrying on. The idea of taking the straw from the crib is a lovely one. People, but again, your listeners will take a little piece of straw and put it in their purse. And to be fair, there's something about any kind of display that children, especially for children anyway, children like it. Children like seeing the little figures, and they like the little play, and the play aspect is really important. Sure, even like for a lot of people, I was in a school again there today, and one young fellow was saying that only the three wise men, typically come late. They come on the 6th of January, and they only put it their crib comes the 6th of January.
Well, they were the clever ones.
Oh, they were.
Well, look, we want people to enjoy Christmas. That's what it's all about. It is a break, and we want people to enjoy Christmas. And I hope you've enjoyed some of what we've been talking about here. We're not very serious now about these things, but that was the way it was in rural Ireland anyway. Yeah. And Michael Fortune, thanks for telling me all about it. Now, I have to take a break, but I'm coming back to you again because you have a project, I think, that's being launched tomorrow night in the north of the county, and we want to talk about that.
Atlanta Seafoods, Drina, Wexford, next to the Volkswagen.